You ever notice how the world changes at night? Not just the darkness, but the way reality shifts. I was thinking about this recently while riding my bike. There's this moment, right? When you're on the road and the wind's not fighting you anymore. It's dancing with you. The engine's this steady heartbeat beneath you. And suddenly, everything becomes clear. Not the kind of clear you get from thinking too much. The kind that comes when you stop thinking altogether. The city lights start bleeding into these rivers of light, like memories of every moment you've ever felt truly alive. I found myself on Mulholland last week, 3 a.m., just me, the bike, and this infinite sky above, and that's when it hit me. Not like a thought, more like a truth that's always been there, waiting. You see, love's exactly like that perfect midnight ride. Not the beginning, when you're still adjusting your grip, still trying to control every tiny movement. I'm talking about that moment when you surrender to it. When you realize control was never the point. You know this feeling I'm talking about, don't you? That exact moment when your heart just opens, when all the questions you've been carrying around suddenly don't need answers anymore. It's beautiful, isn't it? That space between fear and freedom, between holding on and letting go, between who you think you should be and who you really are. But here's the thing about riding at night, about love. It teaches you something profound, something that took me years to understand. You know, that reminds me of something my Aikido master told me years ago. We were sitting after practice, that kind of exhausted silence when truth just surfaces. He looked at me and said, "Keanu, in Aikido, we don't meet force with force. We blend, we flow like water." At first, I thought he was just talking about martial arts, but later, maybe years later, I realized he was talking about everything, about life, about love. Have you ever noticed how we do that? How we fight against love instead of flowing with it? Like we're trying to control the current instead of understanding its direction. Sometimes I think about all the relationships we encounter in life. The ones that shaped us, changed us, broke us open, and I want to ask you something. When was the last time you just let yourself be carried by love's momentum? Not planning, not worrying about where it's going, just being in that flow? Take a moment, really think about it, because what I'm about to share with you, it might change how you see everything. Not just love, but your whole way of being in it. You know what's fascinating about LA at 3 a.m.? The way the city breathes. Most people think cities never sleep, but they do. They just sleep differently. Last week I was downtown, just walking, no destination, just being there. The streets were empty, but not really empty. More like waiting. The traffic lights still change, but they're changing for ghosts. Red to green to yellow, over and over. This perfect rhythm that nobody's watching except you. And if you pay attention, really pay attention, the city starts teaching you things about love that you never expected. See, people think love is chaos, this wild, unpredictable force. But standing there, watching those lights change, you start to see the patterns, the pulse, like how even in emptiness, there's this perfect order. In Aikido, we spend years learning about energy flow. My sensei used to say, energy never stops. It just changes form. You feel it in practice, this constant exchange of movement, of intention. There's no real beginning or end, just transformation. And relationships, they work exactly the same way. We think we're these separate beings, these islands, but we're more like those city lights at 3 a.m., always in dialogue, always exchanging energy, even in silence, even when we think nothing's happening. Sometimes In a relationship, we try to control everything, like trying to make all the traffic lights turn green just for us. But that's not how energy works. That's not how love works. There's this thing about riding motorcycles that nobody tells you at first. When you're approaching a turn, especially one of those tight ones that make your heart skip, every instinct tells you to pull back, to hesitate, to fight against the curve. But here's the truth. Sometimes you have to lean into the turn. The more you try to stay upright, the more dangerous it becomes. The bike knows what to do. You just have to trust it. Trust yourself. Love's exactly like that. Trusting the lean. The moment you stop fighting what you're feeling, stop trying to stay safe and upright, that's when everything changes. That's when you find your balance. You felt this too, right? That moment when you realize fighting against love is what's making you lose your balance. When you understand that the very thing you're afraid of, that lean, that surrender, is actually what's going to save you. It's scary. Of course it's scary. Like that first time you take a curve at speed and everything in your body is screaming to do the opposite of what you need to do. But then you lean in anyway, and suddenly, you're flying. That's what real intimacy feels like. That's what true connection is. Not the safety of standing still, but the exhilaration of leaning into the turn together. Balance in motion, that's what my sensei taught me. Not the kind of balance where you're standing still, rigid, trying not to fall, but the kind that lives in movement, in flow. He'd say, true balance isn't about being perfect, it's about constant adjustment. At first I thought he was just teaching me about staying on my feet during practice, but then I started seeing it everywhere, in how we love, in how we connect, in how we try so hard to make relationships perfect, instead of letting them be real. You know what happens in Aikido when someone comes at you with force? You don't block, you don't resist, you blend with their energy, redirect it, create something new from it. That's what real relationship balance looks like. Not two people standing perfectly still, afraid to move, but two people dancing with each other's energy, constantly adjusting, constantly flowing. I've spent a lot of time watching people in New York, where everyone's rushing, but somehow still connected. In Toronto, where winter forces people closer together. In LA, where connections happen in these beautiful, unexpected moments between the chaos. And you start to see these patterns, right? These universal rhythms in how people move towards and away from each other. Like this couple I saw in Times Square last winter. Among thousands of people, they found this perfect bubble of space. Not by pushing the world away, but by moving with it. Like they'd learned what my sensei was teaching all along. Or this moment in LA, stuck in traffic on Sunset. Everyone's frustrated, tense, but then you see these small gestures between cars. A wave, a smile, a space opening up. That's balance in motion too. That's love finding its way through the chaos. You know what's interesting about the perfect ride? It's never the one you planned. Never the one where everything went exactly right. The perfect ride, like the perfect love, is the one that surprises you. The one that teaches you something about yourself you never knew. I remember chasing this idea of perfection on my bike, in love, in life, always thinking there was this destination, this point where everything would just click into place and stay there. But that's not how it works, is it? The perfect ride isn't about reaching somewhere. It's about those moments when you stop reaching, when you realize that every curve, every bump, every unexpected turn in the road, that's where the magic is. That's where love lives. Let me ask you something about your journey. When you think about the moments that changed you, really changed you, were they the perfect ones? Or were they the messy ones? The ones that challenged everything you thought you knew about love? Think about that time when everything went wrong, but somehow led you exactly where you needed to be. That relationship that didn't fit any of your plans, but opened your heart in ways you never expected. See, we're all on this ride together. Sometimes in the rain, sometimes in the sun, sometimes lost, sometimes found, but always moving, always growing. And maybe that's what makes it perfect. Not the absence of challenges, but the presence of truth. There's this fundamental truth in Aikido that took me years to really understand. When you fight the energy, you lose. Not just the match. You lose the opportunity to transform that energy into something beautiful. Into connection. I see couples sometimes locked in these struggles, both pushing, both resisting, like they're trying to win at love. But here's the thing about relationship struggles. They're not about winning or losing. They're about understanding the energy between you. When someone comes at you with anger in Aikido, you don't meet it with more anger. You step to the side, blend with their movement, guide that energy towards something constructive. The same way you can transform a stranger's frustration into a moment of kindness. The same way love can transform fear into trust. Cities have a pulse, like relationships. You can feel it when you're walking through downtown at rush hour or sitting in a quiet cafe, watching the world flow by. There's this rhythm, this constant exchange of energy. Some people fight against it, always rushing, always pushing. Others, they've learned to find their flow within it. It's like this street performer I saw in Times Square. While everyone else was fighting through the crowd, he'd found this perfect pocket of space, moving with the flow of pedestrians, not against them. His art became part of the city's pulse. That's what a healthy relationship looks like. Finding your unique rhythm within the larger flow. You have to learn to read the energy. In a city, in a relationship, in life. Sometimes it's telling you to move faster, sometimes slower. Sometimes it's telling you to hold on tight, sometimes to let go completely. The key isn't controlling the energy, it's learning to dance with it. One night on the Pacific Coast Highway, everything changed. The moon was full, casting this silver path across the ocean. I stopped my bike at one of those turnouts, just to breathe it in. And that's when it hit me. This truth about love I'd been circling around for years. We spend so much time chasing these perfect moments, the perfect relationship, the perfect connection, like trying to catch moonlight on water. But there I was, surrounded by this vast ocean, this endless sky. And I realized perfection isn't something you chase, it's something you notice. The waves below were just doing their thing, not trying to be perfect waves, not trying to impress anyone, just being exactly what they were. And somehow, in that being, they were everything they needed to be. We're all searching for that perfect moment, aren't we? That instant when everything makes sense, when love feels complete. But maybe we're looking at it wrong. Maybe love isn't about finding perfection. Maybe it's about finding truth, standing there on that cliff, watching the moon's reflection break into a million pieces on the waves, then come back together over and over. I understood something about love, something about how it's not the unbroken reflection we should be seeking. It's the courage to let ourselves break and reform endlessly, beautifully, honestly. You know how in Aikido, there's this moment when everything just aligns? When you stop thinking about the moves and your body just knows? It's the same feeling you get on a perfect ride when you and the machine become one flow of motion, no separation, no doubt, just pure presence. In martial arts, we call it being centered. On the bike, We call it being in the zone. But it's all the same thing. That sacred space where struggle dissolves into harmony, where trying becomes being. Love has this flow state too, this rhythm that's uniquely its own. You can't force it any more than you can force a perfect Aikido throw or command a motorcycle to carve the perfect line. But when you learn to trust it, to move with it, rather than against it, that's when the magic happens. You know that moment when everything aligns? When you're not trying to make love work, but just letting it work through you? Like how your body naturally finds its balance on a bike, or how your spirit naturally finds its center in meditation. It's all connected. The way we move on the mat, the way we ride through life, the way we love. Different expressions of the same truth, different paths to the same understanding. When you get it in one area, you get it in all of them. You ever stood at Griffith Observatory at night, looking down at Los Angeles? From up there, all those millions of lights blend into this perfect web of connection. Each light is someone's story, someone's moment, someone's love. But when you step back, when you really take it in, you start to see the patterns. Like city lights, from a distance, love reveals its true nature when you learn to see the bigger picture. Up close, it might look chaotic. All these individual moments of joy and pain, connection and loss. But take a step back, breathe it in, and suddenly the pattern emerges. Every light down there is like a moment in love. Some burn bright and fast, others glow steady for years. Some flicker, some fade, some suddenly spark back to life. But together they create something bigger than themselves, something beautiful, something true. That's what love is when you really understand it. Not just the individual moments of light in our lives, but the way they all connect, the way they flow into each other, the way they create patterns. We can only see when we stop trying to control each individual light and instead appreciate the entire magnificent dance. And maybe that's the greatest revelation of all, that love isn't about perfecting a single moment. It's about contributing your light to the larger pattern, about finding your place in the dance. So we're back on that midnight ride, the engine humming beneath us, the wind dancing around us, the road stretching endless before us. But now we see differently, don't we? Every curve holds a new meaning. Every moment carries a deeper truth. Remember what I said about that night on Mulholland? About how everything becomes clear? Now we understand that clarity isn't about having all the answers. It's about being open to all the questions. My Aikido sensei always ends our practice with the same principle. Begin and end with respect, for in the circle lies truth. At first, I thought he meant just bowing to your partner, but now I understand. He was talking about how life moves in circles, how every ending is just another beginning. The journey never really ends, you know? Like that road stretching ahead, like the city lights blending into dawn, like love itself. It just keeps unfolding. We just keep learning, keep growing, keep riding. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing about love. Not that it makes everything perfect, but that it makes everything possible. Every turn in the road, every moment of connection, every chance to begin again. Thank you for riding this road with me, for sharing these moments, these realizations, for understanding that sometimes the deepest truths come not from the destination, but from the journey itself. You know, every time I get on my bike now, every time I step onto the mat, every time I watch the city lights come alive at dusk, I'll think about this conversation, about how we're all connected in this dance of love and life and learning. Next time you're out there, next time you're feeling lost in love or found in it, remember this. Remember that, like a perfect ride, like a flowing Aikido movement, like the rhythm of city lights. Love isn't something you master. It's something you dance with, something you flow with, something you trust. And maybe, somewhere down the road, when the moon is full and the night is clear, you'll find yourself thinking about these truths we've shared, and you'll know, deep in your heart, that you're exactly where you need to be, on your own perfect ride, in your own perfect moment, in your own perfect love story. Keep writing, keep flowing, keep loving. The road goes on forever, and the story never really ends.